Some specific lots of 9Lives canned cat food may have low levels of thiamine or vitamin B1. The products recalled include 9Lives Protein Plus with tuna and chicken, and also 9Lives Protein Plus with tuna and liver.
That can you just cracked open for your cat, the one with a picture of whole chicken on the front. In 2022, the Environmental Working Group pulled packaging from 7 of the best-selling pet food brands in America and sent it to a certified lab. The packaging came back positive for PFAS. Those are the same forever chemicals used in firefighting foam, pressed flush against the food your cat eats every single day. One brand charged a premium for years on a promise of no byproducts and no corn. It paid $32 million when that promise turned out to be false. The year it earned your family's trust was the same year it was deceiving them. And I will show you the one word on any cat food label that tells you whether there is real meat inside or none at all. 9 to skip and 2 that earned it, counting down from bad to genuinely deceptive. Let's start with the brand that has been on American shelves the longest. Number 11. Kit and Caboodle. This is a Purina brand, which means it is owned by Nestle, which means one of the largest food corporations on Earth looked at this ingredient list and approved it for sale. The first ingredient is ground yellow corn. The second ingredient is corn gluten meal. The third is soybean meal. You are 3 ingredients deep into a cat food, and you have not encountered a single piece of meat. Cats are what biologists call obligate carnivores. Their digestive systems evolved over millions of years to process protein from animal tissue. They have virtually no biological requirement for carbohydrates. 0. So when a company makes corn the foundation of a cat's diet, it is not a nutritional decision, it is a financial one. Corn costs a fraction of what chicken costs per pound. That savings does not get passed along to you, it goes to the margin. The nutritional consequences go to your cat. Farther down the ingredient list, you will find BHA. The National Toxicology Program has classified BHA as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen, and yet it sits in your cat's food as a preservative, right next to red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, and blue 2. Those dyes do absolutely nothing for your cat. Cats cannot even distinguish most colors. The dyes exist to make the kibble look appealing to you, the person buying it. It is like painting a dog biscuit to impress the dog's owner. The dog does not care. Your cat does not care. Kit and Caboodle retails for roughly 60 cents a pound. At that price, you are not buying cat food. You are buying corn with a spritz of animal flavor and a handful of dye. For context, field corn in the United States trades at roughly 4 to 5 cents a pound in bulk commodity markets. Chicken breast costs between $2 and $3 a pound wholesale. That is a 40 to 60 times difference in raw material cost. The margin on a corn-based cat food is enormous compared to a meat-based one, and that margin is exactly why it exists. Purina knows how to make better food than this. They make Purina Pro Plan, which leads with real chicken. They chose a different standard for Kit and Caboodle, because a different standard is more profitable. The next name on this list is made by the same parent company, but it outsells Kit and Caboodle 10 to 1. Number 10. Friskies. This is the most popular cat food brand in America, and it is built on one of the most effective labeling tricks in the industry. Pick up a bag of Friskies seafood sensations. You will see the words flavors of salmon, tuna, shrimp, and seaweed in large type across the front. It sounds like a seafood counter at a nice grocery store. Flip the bag over and read the actual ingredients. The first ingredient is ground yellow corn. The second ingredient is corn gluten meal. You are 2 lines deep and you have not found a single fish. The word doing all the heavy lifting on that label is flavors. Under AAFCO regulations, the Association of American Feed Control Officials, a product labeled with flavors of a protein does not need to contain any meaningful amount of that protein. It simply needs to taste like it. And the way they achieve that taste is the ingredient listed as Animal Digest, which is a chemical slurry made by breaking down unnamed animal tissues with heat and enzymes, then spraying it onto the kibble as a coating. Your cat is not choosing Friskies because it loves corn. Your cat is responding to the chemical coating. Nestle controls almost 57% of the economy dry cat food market in America, according to Bloomberg intelligence data cited in the 2025 Cascadia Capital Pet Industry Report. That is not a market share. That is a near monopoly. Friskies is their anchor brand. Your grandmother's cat probably ate it. Your cat probably eats it now. That continuity is not loyalty. It is the absence of information. The brand at number 2 on this list has never blended a single ingredient into a paste. We get there in about 20 minutes. Something worse than corn sits at the bottom of the next brand's ingredient list. Number 9. 9 Lives. This brand launched in 1959, built on the back of Morris the cat, one of the most successful advertising mascots in American history. Morris was so popular that he received a mock presidential campaign in 1988. 65 years of marketing charm. Now, let us look at what Morris has been selling. The first ingredient is whole ground corn. After that, chicken byproduct meal, soybean meal, corn gluten meal, and whole wheat. 5 ingredients in, and 4 of them are plants or plant derivatives. The one animal protein is byproduct meal, which AAFCO defines as the parts remaining after slaughter that are not the meat itself. That includes organs, bones, and intestines. Byproducts are not inherently dangerous. Wild cats eat organs. But the word byproduct, without a specific animal name attached, is a transparency problem. Chicken byproduct meal tells you it came from a chicken. Meat and bone meal, which also appears on this label, tells you nothing. According to a Congressional Research Service report, rendering plants that produce meat and bone meal accept material from slaughterhouses, farms, feedlots, marketing barns, and in some documented cases, animal shelters. Then there is the titanium dioxide, listed as a color additive. That is a whitening agent used in house paint, sunscreen, and plastic. The European Union restricted its use as a food additive for humans in 2022 after the European Food Safety Authority concluded it could not rule out concerns about damage to DNA in cells. It is still permitted in American pet food. Your cat's food contains paint pigment, so the kibble looks whiter. Think about who benefits from that decision, and it is not the cat. 9 Lives is owned by the J.M. Smucker Company, the same corporation that sells you Jif peanut butter, Folgers coffee, and Milk-Bone dog treats. Their pet food division generates billions in annual revenue. This is not a small company struggling to afford better ingredients. This is a company choosing the cheapest inputs available because the mascot moves the product regardless. The brand that shares that same parent company has the catchiest jingle in the aisle and one of the worst ingredient lists to match. Number 8. Meow Mix. J.M. Smucker bought Meow Mix in 2015 through its acquisition of Big Heart pet brands for roughly $6 billion. They also own 9 Lives. So the same corporation is selling you 2 brands with nearly identical ingredient problems on the same shelf, at 2 different price points, with 2 different mascots and 2 different jingles. That is not competition. That is the illusion of choice. It is like discovering that 2 rival lemonade stands on the same street are both owned by your neighbor. Meow Mix Original Choice lists ground corn first, soybean meal second, and chicken byproduct meal third. The bag advertises delicious flavors of chicken, turkey, salmon, and ocean fish. 4 different proteins in big type with appetizing photographs. But every one of those proteins is buried beneath the corn and soy. The marketing shows a feast. The formula is built on grain. What stands out on this label is the sheer volume of artificial dyes. Yellow 6, yellow 5, red 40, and blue 2, all present in a single product. The Center for Science in the Public Interest has identified potential health risks associated with prolonged consumption of artificial food colorings, including allergic reactions and possible behavioral effects. Your cat eats the same food twice a day, every day, for years. That is not occasional exposure. That is a continuous low-dose delivery of chemicals that serve zero nutritional function. Meow Mix also contains animal digest and titanium dioxide. That is the same chemical flavor spray found in Friskies and the same paint whitener found in 9 Lives. 3 brands, 2 parent corporations, the same handful of cheap ingredients recombined and repackaged. It is the pet food equivalent of 3 gas stations on the same corner that are all supplied by the same tanker truck. The pumps look different. The fuel is identical. Meow Mix's slogan is, "The only one cats ask for by name." Your cat cannot read the ingredient list. If it could, it would not be asking for corn. The name coming up next is the one that confuses people the most because it looks expensive. Number 7. Fancy Feast. This is where we talk about the promised label trick. And Fancy Feast is the perfect brand to explain it, because its entire business model depends on the gap between what the packaging looks like and what is actually inside the can. Under AAFCO naming rules, the words on the front of the package tell you exactly how much protein is inside, if you know the code. When a product is called chicken cat food, with no qualifying words, it must contain at least 95% chicken, not counting the water used for processing. When it says chicken dinner, or chicken entree, or chicken recipe, the minimum drops to 25%. When the label says with chicken, the minimum is 3%. And when it says chicken flavor, the product is not required to contain any chicken at all. It just has to taste like chicken. That is the one word, flavor. If you see it on the front of any cat food label, there may be 0% of that protein inside. Go check your cat's food tonight. That test takes 5 seconds. Now look at Fancy Feast's dry kibble. The first ingredient is ground rice. The second is poultry byproduct meal. The third is corn gluten meal. Chicken and turkey do not appear until positions 8 and 9 on the ingredient list. You would never guess that from the advertising, which features crystal dishes, silver forks, and voiceover work that could narrate a luxury perfume commercial. Fancy Feast also uses 7 different artificial food dyes across its product lines, according to a PAW diet ingredient analysis. Your cat cannot appreciate a crystal dish, but it will absolutely absorb whatever dye is in the food you put on that dish. There is one brand on this list that has never been recalled in over 20 years. It is number 1. Now we leave the grocery store aisle and walk into the veterinarian's office where 3 more names are waiting. Number 6, Iams. This is a Mars pet care brand. Mars is the candy company. The same corporation that makes M&M's, Snickers, and Skittles also controls a significant portion of the pet food your veterinarian recommends. Mars Pet Care owns Iams, Whiskas, Sheba, Eukanuba, and Nutro. And that is not all they own. Mars also owns Banfield Pet Hospital, VCA Animal Hospitals, and Blue Pearl Specialty and Emergency Pet Hospital. That is more than 2,000 veterinary clinics in the United States alone. Think about what that means. When the company that manufactures your cat's food also owns the hospital where your cat gets examined, that is not a neutral recommendation. Mars invests heavily in veterinary education programs and continuing education courses. When a young veterinarian graduates and opens a practice, the brands they remember are the ones that funded their training. That is not a conspiracy theory. It is a documented business strategy disclosed in Mars corporate materials. Iams itself uses corn in multiple formulations and includes BHA and BHT as preservatives. BHT has been flagged by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as a substance with limited evidence of carcinogenicity in experimental animals. Some formulations list meat byproducts without naming the species. The bag costs noticeably more than Meow Mix, and the ingredient list is not dramatically better. What you are paying for is the recommendation pipeline and the clinical packaging. The white coat behind the counter carries more persuasive power than the paragraph on the back of the bag. Here is the math that matters. Iams dry cat food costs roughly $1.50 to $2 a pound. The corn inside it costs pennies. The brand recognition built through decades of veterinary marketing is what commands the rest of the price. The brand coming up next costs even more and sits behind the same veterinary counter. Number 5. Royal Canin, also owned by Mars. Same parent company as Iams. Same veterinary hospital network pushing it. Different price tag. Royal Canin positions itself as the scientific, breed-specific, prescription-grade option. A bag costs $40 or more, and the ingredient list opens with brewers' rice and corn in many of its formulas. Corn gluten meal appears as a primary protein source in several recipes. Corn gluten meal is what remains after you remove the starch, the fiber, and the germ from corn and concentrate the protein fraction. It is inexpensive to produce. It inflates the protein percentage on the guaranteed analysis label. But it is plant protein, and cats metabolize plant protein with far less efficiency than animal protein. The guaranteed analysis panel on the side of the bag does not distinguish between protein from chicken and protein from corn. Two foods can display the same protein percentage and deliver entirely different nutrition to your cat. It is like comparing the calories in a steak to the calories in a bowl of sugar. The number matches. The outcome does not. Royal Canin's relationship with veterinary education is even deeper than Iams. Mars funds continuing education hours that veterinarians need to maintain their licenses. The products sit in the lobby of veterinary hospitals Mars owns. This creates a system where the recommendation and the financial incentive point in the same direction. None of this is illegal. None of it is hidden. It is simply not mentioned on the bag, in the brochure, or in the waiting room. All of it is worth knowing when you are deciding whether a $45 bag of corn-heavy cat food is worth the premium you are paying. The brand at number 2 prints every ingredient where you can see it through the side of the can because the ingredients are whole cuts of meat. That is 8 minutes away. Number 4. Hill's Science Diet. This is the brand veterinarians recommend more than any other, and it is owned by Colgate-Palmolive, the toothpaste company. Colgate bought Hill's Pet Nutrition in 1976 and has invested in veterinary school partnerships for nearly 50 years. Hill's funds nutrition courses at veterinary universities across the country. Their products are standard issue in teaching hospitals. By the time a young veterinarian opens their own clinic, Hill's is the brand they studied with, trained with, and trust by default. In January 2019, Hill's recalled 22 million cans of dog food across 33 varieties for containing potentially toxic levels of vitamin D. The American Veterinary Medical Association reported that affected products contained up to 70 times the intended amount of vitamin D, a potentially deadly difference. Hundreds of dogs became ill. A class action lawsuit was filed involving 300 plaintiffs. The FDA investigated, and their conclusion was blunt. Hill's had failed to follow its own internal safety procedures. Hill's blamed a supplier error. The 2019 recall affected canned dog food only, not cat food. That distinction matters and should be stated clearly. But the FDA did not accept the supplier explanation at face value. Their November 2019 warning letter noted that Hill's had not followed its own internal quality assurance procedures. The company that charges a premium for scientific rigor did not catch a 70-fold overdose of a vitamin before it went out the door. Hill's has since stated that it strengthened its testing protocols, but the episode matters because it reveals how the recommendation system works. Veterinarians recommended Hill's before the recall. They recommended it after. The brand's position in the market barely changed because the relationship between the company and the profession is structural, not performance-based. One brand on this list was started by a woman who worked inside the pet food industry and decided her own cats deserved better. She is at number 1. Number 3. In 2002, a pet food company launched in Connecticut with a single promise printed on every bag and can. They called it the True Blue Promise, and it guaranteed 3 things: 0 chicken or poultry byproduct meals, 0 corn, wheat, or soy, and 0 artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. That promise was not fine print. It was the entire identity of the brand. It was the reason people paid $3 or $4 more per bag. It was why your neighbor switched. It was why you switched. This is Blue Buffalo. In May 2014, Nestle Purina filed a lawsuit against Blue Buffalo after independent lab testing found poultry byproduct meal in several of Blue Buffalo's top-selling products. The very ingredient the True Blue Promise guaranteed was absent. 13 separate consumer class action lawsuits followed across multiple states. And on May 6, 2015, Blue Buffalo acknowledged in federal court that a substantial and material portion of its pet food had contained poultry byproduct meal throughout the years it was advertising the opposite. The ingredient suppliers were investigated separately. In 2018, Wilbur Ellis Feed and Diversified Ingredients were fined a combined $7 million by a federal court for passing off poultry feathers, heads, bones, feet, and entrails as high-quality poultry meal. That material was going into the bag while the True Blue Promise sat on the front of it, charging you more for the privilege of being lied to. Blue Buffalo settled the consolidated consumer class action for $32 million. At the time, it was the largest pet food settlement in American history, $8 million more than the 2007 melamine recall settlement that affected dozens of brands. In 2018, General Mills, the cereal and snack conglomerate, acquired Blue Buffalo for $4.7 billion. The brand that built its name by being different from the corporate giants became one. If you bought Blue Buffalo between 2008 and 2015 because the True Blue Promise told you there were no byproducts inside, you were paying a premium for ingredients that were never in the bag. You stood in the pet food aisle, compared labels, chose the more expensive option because you thought you were doing the right thing for your cat, and the company behind that label knew, or should have known, that the promise on the front did not match the product inside. Every verdict in this video gets rechecked monthly in the label report, and the link is right below in the description. 9 brands, 4 parent corporations: Nestle, Mars, Colgate-Palmolive, and General Mills. That is the pattern at the bottom of this list. Every one of these companies had the resources, the supply chain, and the expertise to put real food in the bag. They chose not to because corn is cheaper than chicken, titanium dioxide is cheaper than quality control, and the average buyer never flips the bag over. Same shelf, other end. The 2 brands coming up are not consolation picks, and they are not the least bad option from the same corporate tree. These are companies that answered a fundamentally different question. Not, how cheaply can we fill a can and still meet the legal minimum, but What would we actually feed our own cats if we were eating from the same kitchen? Both were started by people who owned cats, not by food conglomerates looking for a new revenue vertical. Both manufacture in facilities certified for human food production. Both have ingredient lists short enough to read in under 10 seconds, ranked on two things: whether the first ingredient is a named animal protein you can identify with your own eyes, and whether the company has ever been caught saying one thing on the label while putting something else in the can. Number 2. Weruva. This is a family-owned company headquartered in Natick, Massachusetts. It was founded in 2006 by David and Stacy Foreman, and the name comes from their 3 rescue cats: Webster, Rudy, and Vanessa. The Foremans started the company after spending years trying to find high-quality cat food and failing. They tried the grocery store brands. They tried the pet store premiums. They kept reading ingredient lists and finding corn, byproducts, and digest. So they started making their own recipes from scratch using fresh, human-grade cuts of meat. That kitchen experiment became a company. Every Weruva product is manufactured in a USFDA-approved processing plant in Thailand that holds a BRCA rating. That is the British Retail Consortium's highest designation for food safety, the same standard required for facilities producing food intended for human consumption. When you open a can of Weruva, you do not see a brown paste of indeterminate origin. You see actual shredded chicken breast or hand-flaked tuna sitting in broth. The ingredients are visible because they are whole cuts of meat, not rendered meal, not byproduct concentrate, not animal digest. The carbohydrate content across Weruva's wet food lines runs between 1 and 3%. Compare that to the 30 to 50% carbohydrate content in the dry kibble brands we just covered. That is not a small difference. That is a different philosophy of feeding. No corn, no wheat, no soy, no byproducts, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, and no artificial preservatives in any product across any line. Weruva has never been recalled in the United States. A 3-ounce can runs about $2 to $3, which works out to roughly $2 a day for an average 10-pound cat. Let's put that in perspective. A large coffee at most chain shops costs more than that. A single can of name-brand soda from a vending machine costs about the same. You are not being asked to spend more money. You are being asked to redirect roughly $60 a month from corn and food dye into chicken and tuna. Over the course of a year, the difference between Friskies and Weruva is about $500. A single veterinary visit for the urinary or digestive problems that cheap, grain-heavy food can contribute to over time often costs more than that in one afternoon. You can find Weruva at Chewy, Amazon, Petco, PetSmart, and most independent pet stores nationwide. The brand at the top of this list has something even Weruva cannot claim. Number 1. Tiki Cat. In 2005, a woman named Christine Hackett left her research and development position at Petco and started a pet food company called Petropics with her husband. She had spent years inside the pet food industry. She saw how formulas were built, how ingredient suppliers operated, and how wide the gap was between what marketing departments said and what manufacturing floors produced. She decided her own cats deserved the version the industry could make but chose not to. Tiki Cat has never been recalled. Not once. Not a single product, not a single lot, in over 20 years of continuous operation. For a company that works with fish and poultry, 2 of the highest risk protein categories for bacterial contamination, that safety record is not just good. It is nearly unmatched. The facility operates under human-grade manufacturing standards. Their fisheries are part of the International Seafood Sustainability Foundation, and their tuna sourcing is certified by the International Dolphin Conservation Program. Every Tiki Cat recipe leads with a named animal protein, not poultry meal, not meat byproducts, not animal digest. The actual name of the animal: chicken, ahi tuna, wild salmon, sardine. The ingredient list reads like a short grocery receipt, not a chemistry textbook. No corn, no wheat, no soy, no byproducts, no artificial colors, and no artificial preservatives in any product across any line. Some recipes in the After Dark collection include organ meats like liver for natural taurine, which is the amino acid cats need and cannot produce on their own. That is exactly how a cat would eat in the wild, organs included. A can of Tiki Cat runs about $1.50 to $2.50 depending on the variety, putting daily feeding costs at roughly $2 to $3 for an average cat. That is less than a single banana at some airport kiosks. You can buy it at Chewy, Amazon, Petco, PetSmart, Target, and independent pet stores nationwide. Tiki Cat also offers a dry food line called Born Carnivore that leads with chicken and chicken meal, with no grains and no byproducts, for cat owners who prefer kibble. The dry food typically runs about $3 to $4 a pound, roughly double what Meow Mix costs. $1 a day. That is the distance between ground corn sprayed with Animal Digest and an actual piece of chicken that you can see and identify with your own eyes. Christine Hackett left the pet food industry because she saw what was possible and what was being chosen instead. Tiki Cat is the version she chose. The biggest finding in this entire video is not one brand name. It is the word flavor on a label and the fact that 4 corporations own most of what your cat eats. Those formulas can change without warning. Ingredients get swapped, suppliers rotate, and by the time a new bag reaches the shelf, the front of the label looks exactly the same. That is why the label report exists. Every month, we recheck every verdict in every video and flag reformulations and recalls before your next trip to the store. Scan the code on screen or use the first link below. $10 a month, cancel anytime. Go annual and 5 months are free. Just want the method? Both guides are $15 one time. Same link.